You already know what a black bear looks like. You saw it in cartoons when you were a kid. Winnie the Pooh with his round belly, simple little face, and paw buried in a jar of honey. Smokey Bear the ranger hat, the calm expression, the famous reminder, only you can prevent wildfires. You've seen black bears on screens in Yellowstone, the Great Smoky Mountains, and Shenandoah. Slow-moving bears flipping over rocks for insects, noses buried in blueberry bushes, looking so harmless it almost seems funny. Maybe you've even thought, if I ever saw one, I'd wave. That's exactly why, every year, dozens of Americans end up in emergency rooms with injuries doctors struggle to describe in ordinary language. The United States is the only country on Earth where humans and black bears share the landscape on such an enormous scale. An estimated 800,000 to 1 million black bears are alive across North America today, more than all brown bears and polar bears combined worldwide. They live in 40 of the 50 states. They wander through backyards in New Jersey. They roam the canyons behind neighborhoods in Colorado. They move through forests bordering the very campground where your family might be sleeping tonight. And somehow, we've all been conditioned by Disney, by tourism campaigns, by decades of reassuring park imagery to believe they're harmless. They're not. That illusion has killed people. To understand what a black bear really is, you first have to understand where it came from. The Appalachian Mountains, the Pacific Northwest, the forests of northern Canada. These aren't peaceful postcard woods. They're seasonal battlefields, places where food appears and disappears with ruthless timing, where winter can last 6 months, and where any animal that fails to build enough body fat before November simply doesn't wake up in spring. Black bears did not evolve to be adorable. They evolved to survive where almost everything else dies. Every year, during a period called hyperphagia, the feeding frenzy before hibernation, an adult black bear may consume up to 20,000 calories a day. For comparison, an Olympic athlete might eat around 6,000. The bear has no choice. It spends as many as 20 hours a day, climbing, digging, tearing apart logs, and searching for anything with calories. Berries, insects, roots, carrion, anything. Because calories mean survival. And not having enough calories means dying in hibernation. Once enough fat has been stored, the bear crawls into its den, curls into a tight ball, and remains there for up to 6 months. No eating, no drinking, no urinating, no defecating. But here's the detail almost nobody knows. The detail that's truly brutal. Female black bears that are pregnant will actually give birth while hibernating, in the middle of winter, inside a dark den. And because there's nothing to eat, they produce milk for their cubs by sacrificing up to 40% of their own body weight. They literally consume themselves to keep the next generation alive, while they are still asleep. This isn't gentleness. It's the ruthless bargain that nature imposed on them long before they ever opened their eyes. Their brains are hardwired with one command: eat enough or nobody survives. And when the wild no longer provides enough food, they look somewhere else. At first glance, a black bear looks clumsy, slow, maybe even a little goofy. That's the last trap you'll ever fall into. An adult male black bear in the northeastern United States typically weighs between 200 and 450 pounds, about as much as a large touring motorcycle. In parts of the West, exceptionally large males can exceed 600 pounds. But weight isn't the frightening part. Speed is. A black bear can sprint at 35 miles per hour across rough, uneven terrain. Usain Bolt, the fastest human in history, reached a top speed of about 28 miles per hour on a perfectly flat track, wearing professional racing shoes. You cannot outrun a black bear. Nobody can. Its claws measure roughly 1.5 inches long, sharply curved not for digging, but for climbing straight up trees with astonishing speed. It's one of the very first survival skills cubs learn, because when danger comes, it's often the only thing that keeps them alive. They climb faster than you can run. If you climb a tree to escape, they'll climb right after you, without hesitation. A black bear's bite force reaches approximately 800 pounds per square inches, more than enough to crush a human skull like an eggshell. For comparison, the average human bite measures only about 160 pounds per square inches. And then there's the nose. This is the real weapon. A black bear's sense of smell is estimated to be thousands of times more sensitive than a human's and at least 7 times stronger than that of a domestic dog, according to current research. It can detect food from as far as 20 miles away. It can smell you, your sweat, the snacks inside your backpack, your toothpaste, the soap you used this morning, long before you ever realize it's nearby. When a female bear moves through the forest, she rubs against tree trunks, leaving behind invisible scent messages for every other bear within miles. I was here. I'm nursing cubs. This is my territory. You cannot hide from something that already knew you were coming before you arrived. August, Doami, Tennessee. A summer camp filled with children. Late at night. We'll come back to that story. But first, you need to understand what most victims never did. Until it was too late. What most people don't know about black bear attacks is that they don't look the way you imagine. There is no warning roar, no dramatic intimidation display, no moment where the animal gives you a chance to back away. Black bears often attack humans the way they hunt prey, quietly, from behind, most often at night or during the dim light of dawn and dusk. Researchers Stephen Herrero and Andrew Higgins analyzed 59 fatal black bear attacks across North America, spanning more than half a century. The most important finding wasn't the number. It was the pattern. Unlike brown bears, which often attack defensively and may retreat once a perceived threat is no longer active, black bears are far more likely to remain engaged when the attack is predatory. They're not acting out of panic. They're acting because they've decided you are food. And once that decision is made, they rarely change their minds. Cherokee National Forest, Tennessee. A 6-year-old girl was asleep inside a tent with other campers. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, while the entire camp was asleep, a female black bear weighing roughly 150 pounds approached the tent. No warning sounds. No growl. The bear dragged the little girl through the tent opening and pulled her approximately 40 feet into the woods before her screams awakened the rest of the camp. Camp staff rushed after the bear and managed to drive it away. The girl survived, but the injuries to her head, shoulder, and back required emergency surgery. The most terrifying part wasn't the attack. The most terrifying part was that the bear wasn't afraid. It didn't flee when the camp erupted into chaos. It had watched. It had evaluated. It had chosen. That is the behavior of a predator. Not an animal acting out of fear. Not a random accident. In 2008, near Lake Tahoe, California, a man was attacked by a black bear that had become accustomed to living around people. What stunned wildlife officers wasn't simply the attack. It was how the bear entered. It came through a bedroom window. A bedroom window doesn't exist in the wild, but it exists in the human world. The bear had learned that. Here's the part that family-friendly wildlife documentaries almost never tell you. Black bears are far smarter than your pet dog. Not a little smarter. Much smarter. Cognitive research has shown that black bears are capable of solving multi-step problems, the kind of abstract reasoning that relatively few mammals consistently demonstrate. In one series of experiments, bears were presented with food containers secured by multiple locking mechanisms. They didn't solve them by random trial and error. They watched. They analyzed. Then they executed the solution, sometimes in only a matter of minutes. Yellowstone National Park has spent millions of dollars developing bear-resistant food containers. Every time a new design is introduced, within a matter of months, some bears in the park have already figured out how to open it. But the part that will truly keep you awake at night isn't that they can open a garbage container. It's how they teach one another. From the first weeks after leaving the den in spring, cubs learn almost everything by watching their mother. They learn which plants are safe to eat, how to dig for roots, how to strip the bark from cedar trees to reach the nutrient-rich inner layer beneath, how to avoid porcupines, because one careless encounter can leave dozens of quills buried deep in their face. And they learn something even more important. Which food sources are worth coming back to? Black bears possess remarkable spatial memory. They remember the locations of every reliable food source they've discovered. For years, if a bear once found food at your house, it will come back. Every season, every year, possibly for the rest of its life. And even more unsettling, it will teach that location to its cubs. Researchers in the Great Smoky Mountains have documented family groups, a mother and her cubs patrolling residential neighborhoods along the same routes across multiple generations. The cub watches its mother approach campgrounds, watches her overturn garbage cans, watches her decide which homes leave coolers or pet food on the porch. Then, about 16 months later, when the mother drives the cubs away to live on their own, they carry that entire map with them. This isn't instinct. It's knowledge passed from one generation to the next. You're not facing a single bear. You're facing generations of accumulated knowledge about you and your neighborhood. April doa mi doa zech, she trey. Ketchum, Idaho. A woman is hiking alone on a trail just outside town. A trail she'd walked hundreds of times before. How long the bear had been watching her from the tree line above. No one knows. In Ketchum, Idaho, a small town in the Sun Valley region, seeing black bears in residential neighborhoods is no longer unusual. They wander into garages, hallways, backyards, even onto verandas while families are eating dinner outside. And they no longer run the moment people appear. This is one of the most troubling trends wildlife biologists have documented over the past decade. They call it habituation. When a bear no longer responds to humans with fear, it becomes an entirely different kind of threat. Over the past 30 years, more than 3 million acres of natural forest across the United States have been converted into residential development. Much of that land sits directly inside the transition zone between expanding suburbs and wild habitat. The same landscapes where black bears live, hunt, and teach the next generation how to survive. The result? Black bear attacks across North America increased by 163% between 1960 and 2009, according to the research of Stephen Herrero and Andrew Higgins. And the trend has continued. But statistics don't tell the real story. The real story is what's happening to the bears themselves. Remember this, a black bear has to build enough body fat before winter, or it dies. Or worse, it gives birth without having enough reserves to keep its cubs alive. For female bears living in shrinking forests, the equation has no solution. 20,000 calories every single day. From a landscape that offers less food every year, a bear forced out of its habitat, starving for calories, stripped of its traditional territory, doesn't become more timid. It becomes more desperate. And desperation, in the language of a 400-pound animal with an 800 psi bite, means something very different from what it means to you and me. April 2023, Ketchum, Idaho. A woman was attacked while hiking the Corral Creek Trail, a trail she had walked for years. According to the Idaho Department of Fish and Game, a black bear weighing roughly 175 pounds, small for an adult, approached from above the trail, emerging from the shadows of the trees. No warning, no sound. She survived only by fighting back with her trekking poles and screaming. The bear was later shot by wildlife officers. The necropsy revealed something heartbreaking. It was emaciated, severely malnourished. This wasn't simply an animal driven by wild instinct. It was an animal that was starving, doing exactly what millions of years of evolution had programmed it to do. Black bears are not villains. They have no concept of cruelty, no concept of evil. They don't hate you. They don't even know who you are. They are simply the most honest product of millions of years of evolution in an unforgiving world. A mother bear sacrificing 40% of her own body weight to nurse her cubs through the darkness of winter isn't cruelty. It's love, written in the language of biology. A bear spending 20 hours a day searching for enough calories to survive the winter isn't aggression. It's desperation, forged by millions of years of evolutionary pressure. Everything it possesses. Its 3-5 mile per hour speed. Its sense of smell thousands of times stronger than ours. Its extraordinary spatial memory. Its climbing ability. Its 800 psi bite. Its ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. Every one of those traits is a perfect answer to a survival problem. Nature demanded it solve. The problem isn't the bear. The problem is us. We put bears on children's toys. We gave them friendly ranger hats. We built our homes on top of their territory. and then acted surprised when they came knocking. Tonight, between 800,000 and 1 million black bears are moving through the forests of North America. They're walking through the darkness. They're following scents. They're remembering. And they're teaching the next generation to remember too, somewhere in a forest, in Tennessee, Colorado, or New Jersey, not far from someone's home. A black bear is standing perfectly still in the darkness, watching the faint glow of a campsite. It isn't afraid, it's calculating. And unlike the Winnie the Pooh stuffed bear sitting on your bookshelf, the one that will always stay still, always smile, always be harmless, the real creature out there doesn't need an invitation. It only needs to decide whether tonight is the night. If this video changed the way you look at the forests around you, subscribe, because we've only just begun pulling back the curtain on what lives in the dark.